For centuries, when we thought about global power, we thought about nations, right? Armies, borders, diplomats. But what if I told you the most powerful players on the world stage today aren't countries at all? We're going to dive into how tech companies are completely rewriting the rules of geopolitics and even war itself.
And it all kind of kicks off with this really stark prediction from one of the most powerful people in tech. When Elon Musk posted this on X, it sent a shockwave. It forces you to ask a question that, frankly, a lot of people have been trying to avoid. What does the next big war even look like? The urgency feels very, very real.
So, okay, if a major conflict really is just over the horizon, who's going to fight it and how? Because the players in the rulebook, they've completely changed. It's not just about tanks and jets anymore. The very definition of warfare is being reinvented right now, as we speak.
First things first, we need to get our heads around the most powerful new players on this global chessboard. These massive, globe-spanning tech companies that now have the kind of influence that used to belong only to nations.
Think about it this way. Where countries used to project their power with armies and diplomats, big tech does it with global platforms, with these vast empires of data, and with critical digital infrastructure. They basically control the new territory, and that territory is cyberspace.
To really understand the scale of this kind of corporate power, we have to actually look back in history. Take a look at this number, $7.4 trillion. That was the peak value in today's money of a single company. Not a nation, a company. The Dutch East India Company.
And here's the kicker. This company, this corporation from history, it could print its own money, it had its own armies, it could literally wage war. It was a geopolitical power all on its own. And just to put that in perspective, at its height, it was worth more than Alphabet, Apple, and Amazon combined. So what we're seeing today isn't totally new, but the speed and the scale, well, that's completely unprecedented.
And look, this is not just some theory. The war in Ukraine is the perfect case study. SpaceX's Starlink was, you could argue, the single most important piece of tech that kept Ukraine's government and military from going dark. Microsoft was literally engaging in cyber defense, fighting off Russian hackers, a job that used to be for spy agencies. And then you have companies like Palantir and Clearview AI providing super advanced battlefield tools right to the front lines. These guys weren't just contractors, they were absolutely essential allies in a war.
So, how on earth did we get here? How did the center of gravity for military tech shift so hard from government labs in the Pentagon to startups in Silicon Valley? Well, this was no accident. It was a very deliberate, very strategic change.
The best way to understand it is to compare two models. Back in the Cold War, innovation was closed. The government, specifically the Pentagon, was in the driver's seat for everything. It was all top secret, incredibly expensive, and pretty slow. Today, we're in an era of open innovation. It's all driven by commercial companies, it moves at the insane speed of the market, and its products are available to pretty much everyone, everywhere.
And this flip, it was just dramatic. Back in 1964, the US government was the engine of innovation, no question. It funded 2/3 of all research and development. Fast forward to today, the Pentagon's share of global R&D has totally collapsed. It's less than 4%. The private sector is now in complete control.
But here's the critical part. This didn't just happen. This White House policy from 1993 laid it all out. It was a brand new strategy. The government basically said, our job now is to help private companies develop and profit from new technology. And that decision right there opened the floodgates. Decades of research paid for by taxpayers, things like the internet, GPS, microchips, it was all handed over to the commercial market, and that directly created the tech giants that run the world today.
Which brings us right to the modern battlefield. The absolute central arena of competition in this new world, the race for dominance in artificial intelligence. And it's mainly a race between the United States and China.
And don't think for a second that this is some simple race to build the best software. Nope. This competition is playing out across at least 7 critical fronts. Everything from who builds the best chips and secures the energy to power them, to who can actually integrate AI into their military the fastest.
And if you want to understand China's strategy, just look at this table. Their top AI models, like DeepSeek, are priced at a tiny, tiny fraction of what the US models cost. That's a 94% discount. The goal here isn't necessarily to be the absolute best. The goal is to be good enough and cheap enough to get the whole world hooked, especially developing countries. They're trying to build an entire global ecosystem that depends on Chinese AI.
But, and this is a really big but, price is not the whole story. When you look at really complex, high-stakes jobs like advanced cybersecurity, the US models from companies like OpenAI and Anthropic still have a huge lead. So the dynamic is pretty clear. China is competing on price and getting everyone to use their stuff, while the US is betting on having the absolute cutting-edge performance and innovation.
So where does this all go? What's the end game? This whole battle for tech supremacy is really a competition between two totally different ideas about how to build the future.
On one side, you've got the US model. It's decentralized, it's often chaotic, but it's incredibly innovative, and it relies on this powerful partnership with its private tech companies. And on the other side, you have the China model, totally centralized, directed by the state, and built on a foundation of military-civil fusion, which means there's basically no difference between a commercial tech company and the country's national security goals. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? AI is fast becoming the new global operating system. It's the foundation for our economy, our society, our security, everything. So as that happens, which model is going to win out? The market-driven, sometimes messy freedom of the West, or the state-controlled, top-down direction of the East? Whichever one comes out on top, well, that's what will define the world we all live in. That's the new great game.